At the very least, we're breaking even on it. I don't care. Lower the price back down.
I am almost homesick for the Florida that I knew growing up in the 90s.
They don't actually truly care about this country.
We don't have to watch that, no. I'll turn off the radio. So won't you wake up?
Hey everybody, if you support the show and you support what we do, you can go ahead and subscribe to us on Substack at FloridaFrontier Uncensored for $8 a month. Paying $8 a month, you unlock exclusive articles, you get exclusive videos, documentaries, and whatever else is in the making in the future for just $8 a month. That is one Starbucks coffee a month. If you want to take it a step even further, you can become a founding member by paying $100 annually, and you get to come on the show at some point. Go ahead and subscribe to Florida Frontier Uncensored on Substack for just $8 a month. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Florida Frontier. Rather, I should say afternoon. I don't know why I said evening. But anyways, welcome to Florida Frontier. Today we have governor candidate as an independent Republican, governor candidate, Imperato. Imperato, he is running for governor in Florida. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Daniel Imperato. I've been a resident in the state of Florida for over 50 years. In fact, I'm celebrating 50 years. And I've been active in politics basically worldwide for many, many years. And I feel that I am the most well-qualified candidate to be the governor of this state based upon who I am, what I bring to the table, my knowledge of business, religious, and political affairs as a doctor in international business, foreign affairs, and interreligious dialogue, as a papal knight appointed by the Vatican in Rome, a grand prior of the oldest humanitarian order in the world, as well as a Coptic Order Knight of Malta, visiting over 150 countries, dedicating my life to learning, understanding customs, cultures, religious aspects, business, political. And back in 2006, I ran with Ross Perot's team as a independent. I was basically getting my feet wet in the political arena. I really started my political career at age 6 when I was stuffing my newspaper route with George McGovern's stickers, as well as following on and growing up with the Kennedys, and then eventually moving to Florida, which I began as a young man as a Democrat. And as I moved down south during the blizzard of '78, I changed party to a Republican conservative. And I've decided to run for governor only because I feel that I could help this state better than anybody else, as well as if I help the state, I help myself, and if I help myself, I help you. So the fact of the matter is that, like you've been in the military, unfortunately, I missed the military because they withdrew the draft as my graduation year. So giving back to the people, utilizing what the great state of Florida gave me traveling to over 150 countries around the world, understanding business, religious, and political aspects. I ran for president in 2006 as an independent with Ross Perot's team. I am a George Bush Businessman of the Year award. I supported the Republican Party as an independent, and I'm also a Ronald Reagan Gold Medal Award winner. So I'm a well-known, old school Republican, old guard, Republican Party, staunch conservative. But I have some leniency pertaining to people's rights and constitutional rights. I was endorsed by Jesse Epps, civil rights leader, Martin Luther King's right-hand man, back in 2007, 2008 race. I then ran for governor in 2010 as an independent, and I recently ran for president of the United States in 23, 24 race. And unfortunately, I contracted COVID quite bad 3 times in a row. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring as governor. But to be very frank, um, I'm really a presidential candidate. And if this leads into the 28 race, so be it. But if the people of Florida want somebody that can protect their back, their interest, their pocketbook, and utilize the years of experience I have, then I offer myself up as a candidate. And I call myself an independent Republican because I'm independent of the minutia. I know the President of the United States for 40 years. I live down the street from him, actually. I've spent some time together with President Trump. And I understand the Republican Party, as I said, for 50 years while I've been here in Florida. And winning the Gold Medal Award from Reagan and Businessman of the Year Award from Bush gives me all the credibility in the world as a Republican. But in the new Republican Party and the new image of the Republican Party, I take some, back seat to some of the stuff that's going on. And I hope and pray that no matter who wins the governor's seat, I want to help them because I want to help my state. I don't need the chair. I don't need the notoriety. I've got enough titles, enough chairs, and I don't, need to do this because I want to, on the job training. I'm very well qualified. Day one, in fact, I'm ready to start implementing the programs that I have. I've met with some of the leaders in the state, and I believe that I could actually start this, how should I say, modification program of our state that's needed desperately. And I can start it today because I've got the reach, ability, capability, knowledge, wisdom, and strength. And as you see, I'm a man of faith, and God leads the way. So with that, I'll let God lead the way as to whether or not he puts me in the governor's mansion. And if not, then I will help the next governor any way I can, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. It really doesn't matter to me, although I'm staunch conservative and support the Republican Party. But I want to help my state, and that's more important to me, and I want to give back to the state. So if I can do it any way, shape, or form, I will. And I will reserve the right for the 2028 race. And I can tell you that I am a very strong competitor on a global basis and have the experience, knowledge, wisdom, and strength to do it. So with that, I will go to the first question.
Cool. So the first question you already kind of answered, but generally my first question for any sort of candidate is, why did you decide to run for office? And so, and you mentioned something that's very interesting to me. I had no idea about you about. One of those things being you worked with Ross Perot. I've always found Ross Perot very interesting. I don't know too much about him. The only thing I do know about him is he is the first independent to almost win a presidential election, though. And so I guess honestly, my first question to you, since you already kind of cleared up a little bit about why you decided to run, how has your views changed over time? Because I know you said you worked with Ross Perot, then you did things with George W. Bush, and then over the years you were a Democrat, and then now you switched to Republican whenever you came down to Florida. What has inspired you to kind of make these sudden changes throughout your political career?
Well, they weren't sudden changes. They were changes predominantly coming down from the Northeast at age 18 years old or what have you. I wasn't really set in stone as in a Democratic world, but being that I was involved with the Democratic Party and the Kennedy family and grew up in that environment. When I came to Florida, I came in the blizzard of '78, and I actually have a license plate that says "Arrived Stoned." So that was in during the blizzard of '78, and now the people are arriving here, and it's looking like the people are all stoned. So with the marijuana movement and what have you, things have changed tremendously. But at the end of the day, the situation that we have in the state is something that I believe I can help. Whether I'm an advisor to the governor, I become the governor, doesn't matter what party it is. I'm not a party person more than I am a people person. And I have the ability to serve the people equally and properly. And I do lean on the Republican Party side based upon the fact that my neighbor is the president of the United States. And, as a citizen of the United States, you're supposed to pray for and support your president. So I do. But I have a different vision for the state of Florida. And there's no real candidate in this race that can compare with who I am or what I bring to the table. And I'm not saying that out of negativity or ego trip. It's just a fact. Look at my years of experience. I mean, experience is the best teacher. So whoever wants to, poke holes and talk about each other and throw stones at each other, that's all minutia for me. And that's why I still call myself an independent. In addition, the the voters in these races that have changed the support to Democrat or Republican have been the independents. And when I started in the political arena to run for president with Ross Perot, the independent party movement was about 12% of the country. Well, now the independent party movement, which I grew with, is 49% of the country. So the problem you have as an independent candidate is there's no political support, and there's no way you can win in a presidential race because of the ballot access and what have you. And I've gone through it all. I'm pretty well educated in that. But on a state level, you could win as an independent. But because of the current situation and the fact that my neighbor is the president of the United States, I'm supporting the Republican Party. And I'm quite sad at the fact that the Republican Party lost the last elections in West Palm Beach, Florida, in Palm Beach County. And I think that I could be of a great help to revive the old guard, old principles, morals, the Secretary Bakers, the time of the Colin Powells. And, I go back to Israel in 1978 when Dizengoff Square blew up. I was involved with Yitzhak Rabin and Menachem Begin. And you talk about South America, Central, South, and Latin America. I was the only candidate that ever been hosted in a presidential, how should I say, consortium of all the presidents and convention of all of Central, South, and Latin America. Being that I'm a papal knight and I have very special permissions pertaining to the Holy See in Rome, my keys run deep. My education is second to none. And to close out and answer the last piece of it is, when I was a little boy, I nailed on the altar from Revere, Massachusetts. I was poor. I didn't have, 50 cents to my name. And I asked the Lord, as an altar boy, I wanted to see the world, get an education, and be a millionaire. Well, watch out for what you ask for.
Yes, sir. And so this kind of leads me to my next question. And you say you bring the experience, you have the knowledge and the wisdom. With that being said, if you're elected as Florida's next governor, what would you do in your first day of office? What would the first day look like for you and for Florida?
Well, first of all, I would be well prepared for my first day in the office. And second of all, the immediate emergency situation that nobody is talking about pertaining to the strategies and implementation of the the 2030 program is the budget. And um, you know, whether I support or align with my governor Ron DeSantis, in some cases I do, in some cases I don't. I think he's a very nice man. He's a nice Navy man. I think he did a decent job with the state pertaining to legislation, but he had no business experience. And the problem that we have is um, when he took over as governor, we were $20 billion in the positive. And when he leaves, he's going to leave us in $3 billion in debt. So, all the people say, oh, Ron's been the greatest governor. I offered to help Ron. I offered to advise him. I would still help him if he runs for president or what have you. But I'm a very critical man and I'm a righteous man. So I just tell it the way it is. And I don't lie, I don't cheat, I don't steal. Although I've been accused of everything since I ran for president, they attacked me like they did with Donald Trump. And I went through battles with the attacks and the oppressions and the deep state and the swamp, as you call it. So at the end of the day, I've been there, I've done that. And my only real criticism with the state leadership, with Governor DeSantis, is the fact that he fell short in the business acumen, and he didn't really do much about it to cover it, to reach out for people like me that could have helped increase and multiply and grow the state. I mean, for me, that's a daily business. It's not something that I have to learn. So I believe that the first days of the governorship would be certain mandates that I would implement pertaining to certain things that have gone on in the state that I clearly disagree with, but only disagree with them because I'm a citizen. And as I say, a vote for me is a vote for you. I know what it is to pay a parking ticket. I know what it is to go to a court. I know what it is to go to the food store and worry about the prices of whether you're going to pay for gas or pay for food. I understand the state. I understand it so well pertaining to the days I came here. Miami was dead. Now it's booming. So economically, I'm in a great position to be able to take what Ron DeSantis did in the legislation aspect, and I'm not a wrecking ball. One of the problems I have with the parties and the candidates, everybody comes to the office, I'm going to do this, this guy's no good, I'm better than him. And they come in and they tear everything up, similar to what's going on now in Washington, D.C. I don't believe in tearing anything up. I believe in modifying, implementing. And the problem is that, when a party comes in and the leader of that party, whether it's governor or president or senator or representative or what have you, or Congress, they always argue, that they can do things better. But at the end of the day, where have we gone? Because nothing's better. And it's not better because the minutia and the hoopla and the talks that are spoken in the how should I say, clips, and candidates promising the moon and the stars. The fact of the matter is, you really need to look at the resume. You really need to look at the history. You need to look at the depth of the individual who's running for the office and what they really can do for you, not for themselves. And the problem I have with a lot of the candidates, it's all about them. They tell you it's about, you, but at the end of the day, it's about them, and it's about them sitting in the chair. And again, I said, I don't need the chair. I don't need any of it. I just want to help my people. And as a godly man, I want to give back. So what's the best thing I could do? At this particular time, there's no opportunity to run for president. So the next thing to run for president is governor. I know Donald Trump, President Trump, very well. And I've offered to help him. I have helped him. I've offered to be part of his envoy recently in the Middle East. And unfortunately, you have competitive issues in the past, and there's a lot of history between us pertaining to certain situations that have taken place over 40 years that I know him. But at the end of the day, I set that all aside. What can I do to help the people? Because the people, not only in the state of Florida, the people are being raped, milked like cows in a slaughterhouse. And it's disgraceful, it's disgusting, and it's to me personally destroying my how should I say old school happiness to be an American. It's making me think twice, like, basically what happened to America, and now what's happening in Florida. So I believe that I can toe the line, and on the first days reach out for people that I know around the world pertaining to the structure and strategy that I have. In today's environment, the governor of a state has to actually be in the same caliber as the president of the United States. Each state has its own, rules, regulations, constitution, legislation. But at the end of the day, running a state is the same, except for the multiple states, as being a president. And I'm sorry to say it, there's nobody running in this race that can be the president of the United States that I can see. And I just hope and pray that the people, take the time to dig in and look in the background and the history. And I'm not against them. And the only thing I can do is whoever wins, help them. Because hands down, I can help this state tremendously at Godspeed.
Sounds good. And so you mentioned a little bit of it earlier. You may kind of cracked a joke, talking about stoners and whatnot. What is your stance on marijuana? Because I want to get into like the topics. I want to start addressing specific topics that is the concern of Floridians
No
now,
problem.
rather than just talk hours and hours. I can talk hours and hours, but getting into some topics now, we're going to go ahead and just full speed ahead. What's your stance on marijuana?
Well, look, if you have a stance on alcohol, you have the same stance on marijuana because they're both, how should I say, um, tools that alter your, human being and character. And the problem that I have with marijuana, as I said, when I came to Florida, it said arrive stoned, and I got a license plate. In fact, I'll pull it out and post it with you. And today you arrive in Florida, and like many other states, everybody's stoned. The abuse of marijuana pertaining to the use in the public as well as driving is the same as being intoxicated or drinking alcohol, while you're driving or on the streets. And in my opinion, it's got to stop. It's disgraceful. The other issue with marijuana is that the people um, are utilizing it during their work sessions. They're going outside for lunch and they're smoking marijuana. The streets smell like marijuana, and it's got to stop. And not because I'm against marijuana. In fact, I don't smoke it, but I've had my day when I was younger, and I think it's a great, a great healer. It gives you, the opportunity to become, a little bit vibrant sometimes, and sometimes you get, the munchies and you want to eat a lot, and sometimes it depresses you. But the worst part of marijuana is what people don't realize is number one, it's not good for the troops. So if you're looking to have children, that doesn't work. In addition, the marijuana, if abused, leads into other things, and for some people, it makes them aggressive and think more, especially people who are autistic or what have you. But in general, marijuana does affect you. And while I believe and I agree that it should be legal, I think that the rules and regulations of the legalization of marijuana must be tied to basically 3 points. One is the time and place that you can use it. Two is the quality of the marijuana. Because when I grew up in the marijuana days with the Colombian gold, it was natural hemp, which God put on this earth. They've been smoking marijuana for 2,000, 6,000 years. But the marijuana then became Silicon Valley and Microsoft in those days, and the Sensimilia and the treated and the Gainesville green, and now it's so treated that you're not really smoking marijuana. Marijuana is a natural healer. Hemp oil is natural, God given. But the medicinal addition to the marijuana production should put grades on it, as well as, because of that, I put it in a class equal to alcohol. And I do think that the alcohol rules and regulations should be similar to. And I do think that carrying marijuana, on your possession, which also leads to people who are looking for marijuana or to smoke a joint or what have you. They're not necessarily looking to have a license for it and register themselves in a national registry. So the people with the licenses or the medicinal medicine that's given by the doctors are allowing those people to sell drugs, which is a very big problem. And when you look at the unemployment and you look at the people who are collecting money from the state of Florida or from the United States government as unemployed, or they're working for a corporation and they're getting paid from a corporation, today they're all doing side deals with the mobile phones, whether it's prostitution, drugs, or internet scams. And you need a very sophisticated governor and leader of the state that can retool legislation that's for the people, but also to protect the people. Because it's easy to give everybody a marijuana card, but it's not easy to create a program based upon your experience and knowledge of how to tool that program to make sure it's not hurting the very simple people that you're giving them the opportunity to use it. So with that, I'm not against it, but I wouldn't say regulate it, but I would restrict it, and until age groups, places, times, quantities, as well as the quality of what you're putting in your body. Because I can tell you, the marijuana that I smelled this morning working on the street was skunk weed, and it's powerful. And that's not marijuana, that's dope. So with that, I'm here.
Sounds good. Moving on, and this links back to education system as well. We're going to get into the education later on. But for right now, we're going to focus on parental rights as far as children in school. I don't know, maybe spankings. I don't know. Well, I hear a lot of people that's actually against spanking their children. I'm actually for it. I'm totally for it. What is your view? What is your view on parental rights?
Well, the biggest problem I have with parental rights is, number one, um, until you're 18 years old and you live at home, you're under the parental rights of your parents. And I don't believe that any school system or any doctor or anyone should have the right to arbitrarily, do whatever they want to do with you without parental consent. And I say that because, look, if we were living in a society where you could trust the educators to the degree that we used to be able to trust educators, then it may be a little bit different. But today, the very educators are promoting their personal interests, and that's a problem. In addition, the parental rights issue, which I have a huge experience, read my book, Independent America's Political Mafia and Judicial Tyranny. I have a very personal situation with parental rights pertaining to the rights of parents when they have children and there's either a divorce or out of wedlock. And when I become governor, the first mandate to answer your question that I will sign is an automatic 50-50 sharing agreement for parental rights for children, because the court system is corrupt, the child and families are out of control, the bribery and the cost and the lawyers that are billing and double billing and triple billing comes to the one with the money gets the child. It's unfair for the child, and it's unfair for the person that can't afford a lawyer, and it's unfair for the society in general, because the inalienable rights under the United States Constitution in parental rights is, first of all, the mother is the original umbilical cord, which has a privilege pertaining to the parental right. But the separation of people with children has to start at 50-50 with no discussion, so that we eliminate the court battles, the backup in the court system. The court system's so backed up with ridiculous cases going on and on and on and on. But yet you hear the judiciary state, oh, we got too many cases. And I've been involved in immigration court, federal court, state court, tax court, Securities Exchange Commission fraud against me, which was fraud. They lied. They created a story. They told me I took $2 million to run for president. Never proven nothing. I ended up, being exonerated. But at the end of the day, there's so much minutia in the court system, especially in South Florida, and the corruption in the child court system connected to the arbitrary, uncontrollable child and families connected to the Department of Revenue and the child support program, which is in complete violation of the codes and the conduct, as well as the use of the proceeds that the federal government allocates to the state, that it's a joke. The child and family leaders told me, Danny, nothing you can do about it. Get on the media. It's corrupt. Even my meeting, without mentioning a name, of a top general counsel, Department of Revenue individual, looked at me, shook his head. It's corrupt. And the issue that we have with parental rights goes down to the abuse of the educational system and the corruption RICO with the educators, the judges, the child and families, and the system itself is so corrupt. The reason they want to alter the children and be able to do all this stuff is manipulative to fill the program so they keep getting their paychecks, like taking children from their parents, creating cases pertaining to parental rights and sex change and all this stuff. This is all minutia. It's all hogwash. It's all to keep the machine running so that the lawyers, the child and families, and the guardian ad litem system, which is corrupt from the top down, is a joke. That will be the second mandate that I will sign as to the modification of the entire children and parental rights, child support, child and families, court proceedings, and limit the continued abuse as best I can and root it out over the 4 years and hopefully maybe 8, and hold accountable the very fundamental principle, foundational right of the Republican Party's agenda and platform as a carbon copy of the United States Constitution, which is clear. You cannot deny a mother's rights from her child, and you cannot deny the what should I call rearing of a child from their mother and their parent. And in the case where it's as clear as day in the Constitution and under equal protection under the law, both parents should immediately have 50-50 time sharing, no questions asked, and people who abuse, who are narcissists, who are abusers, who lie in front of the court, who trash people, they need to be held accountable. And the judges in the judicial system that deny a citizen of the state of Florida a fundamental constitutional right should be derobed and removed, as well as the lawyers and the how should I say, Florida Bar Association, which does nothing to crooked lawyers. They maybe charge 1 or 2, if that. The system needs to be completely gutted, revamped, and I know how to do it. And believe me, I will make sure that the United States constitutional rights, court proceedings, judicial canon codes of conduct will be upheld in my state.
Sounds good. All right, now, and that's a whole lot to unpack right there. And this is also linking back to parental rights. Actually, you mentioned earlier you want to give 50-50 custody of the children whenever their parents split up. And this is, my own personal question as a voter, just something I came up off the top of my head whenever you're talking about it, because this is a big concern of mine. As we're going further into the future, our country is declining. Our country is more and more rejecting Christ over time, and I believe in the result of that, we are not having as many young people get married. People in general just are not getting married as often as they should be. People, what they'll end up doing is they'll get together with somebody, they'll have a kid, and they'll split up. But ultimately, if we apply Christian principle, because we are ultimately a Christian-based country, our country was founded based off of Christian principles. If our country was to go ahead and continue to proceed to align with our values of the founding fathers and get married and then have children first, then it would be more discouraged in society, and it would be more frowned upon. I use the word frowned upon, but ultimately what I'm trying to get at is I believe that it would actually be far fewer people that is going down into that hole of having a baby, splitting up with the person, or that person splitting up with them, if we just put cultural I guess you would say, if we got rid of the cultural degeneracy within our country, much less our state. And so, anyways, I go on to say, is there anything in I would not really think there really is, but is there anything we can do in the state of Florida to encourage young couples to get married?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The first thing, which is the third mandate, I will mandate that Bibles are put back in the school day one. I will mandate that biblical courses will be taught mandatory in all schools, from kindergarten, homeschooling, to colleges, universities. It is a must, as well as the English language. And when you get into the when you get into the Judeo-Christian, Roman, Greco history of our founding fathers, which were given discernment by God, and being that I am a pastor and a man of God, and I'm anointed man of God, I pray in tongues. I've been knocked out in the Holy Spirit with Pastor Benny Hinn, and I went through the baby steps of Christianity and biblical principle and the separation growing up, being a papal knight as a staunch Catholic, and then in the Bush era they separated the Catholics from the Christians, and basically the Catholics weren't Catholics. They prayed to icons, and the Christians were real Christians. And then it went into, the evangelical Christians, and I'm probably one of the most powerful evangelical Christians, if you want to call it that. I dance in the Holy Spirit. So, when I get on stage and I become a governor of the state, or even have a chance to have a proper debate stage, I'll call some of the pastors that I know that can pray on me in front of the people of the state, and they'll understand what the power of the Holy Ghost is. So the problem that we have is there's a several prong issue here. Number one, the parents have in my opinion, obligation to teach and train their children as American citizens, not to force religion, as people have complained that I say God leads the way, and I'm mixing state, state and religion. I'm not mixing anything. When you look at your dollar bill, what's it say? In God we trust. So if you don't like God, don't use the dollar bill. That's why they're moving into electronic currency and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the citizens of the United States of America that actually read their citizenry constitutional obligation as a citizen of the United States, who arbitrarily tout I'm American, but don't understand what it is to be American, is a disgrace to our society. So, alongside of the mandatory implementation of Bibles and Bible teaching in school, which doesn't mean that other religions, as a doctor of interreligious dialogue, I find it fascinating to understand other religious, sects, and I've been all over the world. So, but there's only one way to God, and that's through the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Spirit, through Jesus Christ. And the parents must understand that the Constitution of the United States, that gives them the freedom that everybody comes to America for, that they're now destroying. The very parents don't know the Constitution. So the next mandate would be that I would mandate constitutions and constitutional rights to be taught in the schools, and alongside the Bible will be a constitution. And I would create a educational program in the state of Florida that would do educational training for special grants or special recognitions. And I would expand, not promoting Christianity uh, as a must or as a cult, because Christianity is one thing, believing in God is another. And even though you have people in different parts of the world who were brought up in educational environments, whether it's Buddhist or Muslim or any other religion, they never had the chance to understand our nation and the foundation of our founding fathers, and the correlation between the Roman courts, and in our case the U.S. courts and the halls of Congress. When you look up top, you see Moses, but people don't even know that. So it's education that's only thing that's going to change the understanding, not forcing people, well, I'm Christian and I'm better than you, or you need to be Christian, or, evangelicals are going to be the Republican Party. That's all hoopla minutia. The Democratic Party is as Christian as the Republican Party, and the people, in the Southern Baptist black churches were full of the Holy Ghost long time ago. So all of this ping pong playing with sound bites and pitting, God, and using God in politics is, to me, disgusting. And I think God is fed up. I think the judgment on the United States of America, based upon the abuse of using the word in vain, and abusing the privilege to be a blessed nation. You see, people don't realize that America was founded as New Israel, and America was blessed. And unfortunately, we've torn away from that for a few different reasons. One is immigration problem, two is constitutional problem, and three is biblical education, which is the founding purpose of why the people came here from foreign countries. It's the founding purpose of the protection and rights of the citizens of the United States, which are obligated and responsible to understand what they're a citizen of. And because they haven't been educated, they don't even know what day it is. And unfortunately, the politicians play on that, and the people are complacent. And to be frank with you, the politicians themselves are complacent. So we need definitely in the political world, number one, there's no law in the United States of America and in the state of Florida other than constitutional law. Period. End the story. The primary language is English. Period. End of story. And if you want to be a citizen of the United States of America, then you should take a test on the Constitution, and you should take a test on the biblical principles and understand what you signed up for. Because I can tell you, we are destroying our own nation. We're destroying our neighbors. We're fighting with ourselves. We're being pitted against one another. And I'm sorry to say, the parents are at responsibility, but more importantly, are the politicians that pit themselves and get votes from people and say use sound bites. But more importantly is the leadership of the state and the leadership of the country. And that's why I will be the greatest governor that this state has ever seen. because I understand firsthand experience of these educational issues connected to parental rights, as well as the right to be a citizen and the responsibility to be a citizen, to understand what you signed up for. And I will do my best as governor every day and every minute to remind the people of the state of Florida who we are in Christ.
Yeah. So, this is kind of the next topic I was wanting to go into. And it has to do with farming, and then it also has to relate a little bit of what you just said about people wanting to come to the country. They have to take a test on the Constitution and the Bible, and they have to get it correct in order for them to be to live in our country. And so I am, me personally, I don't represent any candidate. I don't do any of that, right? But
What do you mean? You don't represent me?
well,
Okay, this interview's over.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
No,
But
go ahead. Let's go on. When we finish with this interview, it'll be a long one. It'll be specific. It'll have merit. And the people of our state, if they take the time to listen to it, they'll understand who they need to pick as governor of their state, because that governor has to be capable of taking care of their children.
yes, sir. And so this next question I have, it honestly has its hands in a few different baskets here. One of them being education, the other one being farming, and the other one being overdevelopment, as well as immigration. So, one thing I see that some candidates are going for, and a lot of people are saying, is for one, people don't want foreign exchange students in our schools in Florida. Now, some people do, some people don't care, where others don't, or others don't want them. And so, kind of like my question on that, and slash my view, like first I got a statement. I believe that foreign exchange students coming, like, I don't know, from China, right? I don't see there being a reasoning for our Floridian students having to compete with students that's not even from our country, much less our state. And so, is there something that we can do about that in the state of Florida? And what's your view on that? Because I know, obviously I'm not against immigration, okay? I'm not against immigration. I think, like you said, it needs to be done a certain way. They have to fully understand, and like they're, even to get in the country, you have to take a pledge. You have to pledge an oath to the country, right? You have to pledge your allegiance, and you have to dismiss any other allegiance you had within the other country. But I think that there needs to be more, though. Like you said, there needs to be more.
Again, you're talking about a subject in an education. I don't know, back, got to be 30 years ago, I was involved in cross-cultural education and with the Japanese. And wakarimasu arigato. Cross-cultural education is part of a fabric of any nation on a cultural basis. But more than having exchange students like me as a semi-professional hockey player from Boston, Massachusetts, I was an exchange student to Canada to go live in the houses, and their kids came to live in Boston so that we could play hockey. So the cross-cultural education, within reason, is a good thing. But the purpose it's used for and the duration it's used for needs to be strict. But worse than that is, look, the immigration issue in this country, I fought in 2006. I fought on Imperial Beach in Southern California, where they were going to build a statue of me and Pancho Viejo about the Americas. You see, Christopher Columbus, who was Jewish, he discovered the Americas. And my saddest statement is that America forgot its brothers and sisters in Central, South, and Latin America, and let everybody else in the world buy it, use it, extract from it, as well as the Caribbean and Mexico and the borders. And in those days, Vicente Fox was president of Mexico, and George Bush Sr. was president of the United States, and there was no enforcement of border control because it was convenient at the time with Noriega and the Contra affairs, and I always stated that the border is an issue. The biggest problem we have with the border right now is the food production coming in that's being infected. And the fact that the food production coming in through immigrations, there's human beings immigrating, but there's also food immigrating. And the food is rotten. It's being stuffed in containers. It's outdated. And it's being put on the shelves. There's no FDA oversight. Our border control system has been out of order at least since I know George Sr. Bush as president. And sadly to say, the illegal or improper immigrants didn't have to be illegal. They were forced to be illegal. But they built this nation's farming. They built this nation's, how should I say, economy because of all the drugs they brought in from Central, South, and Latin America. I mean, sorry to say it, but Miami was built on it. So the fact is that the human people, human beings, the Central, South, and Latin American people in general, are very kind, loving people. I've spent time all over South, Central, and Latin America and the Caribbean. We're people. But the problem is the immigration's rules and regulations, and I would never tear mother and father and children apart because of an immigration football. No way, no how. For what? You think that the small amount of immigrants are going to change our country? You really think by splitting them up and being brutal and tearing them apart, you think that's godly? It's not. So, and the other issue that I have is the greatest nation in the world has a problem with immigrations on the border. You're telling me you can't control the border? You can't control the border because you never invested in Central, South, and Latin America, and you didn't make them your friends, you made them your enemies, and you allowed China to go in, you allowed them to take over with the Panama Canal, which I'm a supporter to take it back. But the fact of the matter is we forgot about our neighbors. And when Pope Brolio became Pope Francis, I was with him in Argentina when he became cardinal. And there was a plan. And that plan was destroyed because of the trashing of the Pope. And recently, again, the same trashing. And, you got guys like Marco Rubio. Marco's a nice man. He's, foreign affairs guy. But really, Marco, you were senator. What did you do about the border? Rick Scott, what did you do about the border when you were governor? Jeb Bush, what did you do about the border when you were governor? So basically, these people coming into our border in the southern side is minute compared to the overstayed visas and the HB1 visas, which I have personal experience on, whereby there are people coming in our country under HB1 visas, brutally harming our citizens, getting involved in drugs and taking away parental rights and abusing our system, as well as overstaying their visas and staying in the United States of America. And they came here in an airplane legally, and they were never tracked. They were never put some kind of bracelet or some type of control or some type of chip. And our country has more illegal, unlawful abuses of HB1 visas and overstays that have learned how to rig the system, where the immigrants coming in from Central, South, and Latin America, they're poor, humble people looking for a job. They're coming here for a better life. So the next mandate that I will sign is I am in favor of cross-cultural workforce programs to increase and multiply our farming in this state. But it will be in English. It will be well trained. And I'm also in support. And the second part of the mandate will be to not only cross culture, but cross create the manufacturing capability that should have been taken advantage of long time ago throughout the South America, Latin, Central South America, and the Caribbean, where China has been bypassing the quotas by shipping stuff from our islands. And China owns the Bahamas. People don't even know it. Li Kai-ching, personal friend of mine, owns the Great Harbor Cay and the islands and the ports. They control the islands. And you know, in the Cuba issue, I spoke in Miami on Chi Ocho on a float, Libre Cuba. I'm the one that started negotiating when Barack Obama stole my thunder and won the race, and the IRS came after me with the political opposition they used in the tax department, and they tried to launch programs and it didn't work. And I'm the one that met with all of the South, the Central South, and Latin American leaders to solve these problems with Hugo Chavez and Maduro and Urbay and Fidel Castro and Evo Morales and Calderon and I know the leadership of these nations. Not from Lula from Brazil for years. The problem that we have in immigrations goes back to education. If you educate the people that want to come to America, believe me, they would get in line and they would do it properly. And if we had a border, which I have a plan for, that was cooperative instead of negative, and we created an immigration system that was friendly instead of brutally abusive to human rights. And as a papal knight, I have a canon code of codices as a grand prior of the Sovereign Order of Bonaria. There are certain things you do and certain things you don't when it comes to humanity. And you don't treat people like dogs, and you don't put them in cages, and you take full responsibility for the fact that the immigrations program in this country was not properly installed. And as far as removal of immigrants, the Constitution is clear pertaining to returning, as well as the constitutional rights of the people for due process of law. And I believe that the United States of America is equally responsible for the unlawful immigrations because they let it happen. So if you were a poor person fighting for your life, and I'm not talking about criminals, there's criminals from every place in the world, there's drug dealers from all over the world. I'm talking about people that want to come here and work in the farms and do the work that Americans don't want to do, and couple them with criminals and thieves, people who are paying taxes. They're paying taxes. We got billionaires, trillionaires paying no taxes. These people were taxpayers helping our economy. So I just think that any arbitrary rule of law or implementation of any legislation pertaining to a whim off the seat of their pants as to a political football being used to appease one side and conquer another is disgraceful. And as best I can, as governor of this state, I will stop it because it's inhumane and it's not godly. So when you tell me that you're a Christian, godly person, well, let me tell you something. God is a righteous God. And the crown that you receive from God when you leave this earth, the highest crown is righteousness. And I am one of the most righteous person you'll ever meet. I'll go to hell and back for righteousness. So the second issue is God is not a God of confusion. Our systems, our administrative systems, our child and families, our divorce courts, our child support, our drivers, motor vehicles, the administrative branches and subdivisions and organizations in this state are so out of order. You can't get anybody on the phone. They're not working in the offices. You can't get any help. When you get help, they don't speak English. When you get calls and you're on foreign call centers and not even in the United States of America, you're dealing with people that are, sorry to say, with respect to them, their moronic error pertaining to the job that they've been given because they haven't been tested. There's no program, TOEFL language. There's no testing pertaining to the job qualifications and capabilities, which is the additional mandate that I'll sign pertaining to government staff and people working for the government. When I grew up, you had to pass TOEFL language and you had to take tests to prove that you're viable and capable to work in that position. Today, they hire anybody for the cheapest amount of money to do anything, anywhere, and then they completely convolute the system to make it chaotic so that, he said, she sells by the seashore. The robbery, theft, and fraud going on in this state, which Blaze is working on, and with his new Doge type program, and I've spoken with Blaze, and I'm willing to help him. In fact, I'm hopefully going to meet him soon again. But the fraud and abuse in our state is not only from taxpayers scamming. It's from the entire internal political, judicial, and administrative systems that are faulty, that need to be completely renewed, reformed, and the greatest transformation of modification or modernization, because I am the grandfather of telecommunications infrastructure, building fiber optic cables around the world before people even had internet. And I am known as the father of artificial intelligence and internet security. I have a plan that'll save this state billions of dollars. and it's already written on day one, ready to activate, already planned. And I have the ability and the knowledge and the wisdom of doing business in over 70 countries around the world and visiting over 150. I know how to create cross-cultural programs and commercial cross-cultural employment programs that aren't going to hurt us, it's going to help us, as well as address foreign investment, strategic investment through my Rolodex. I don't need any on the job training. When I recently met with the Chamber of Commerce and one of the leaders, they were bragging about the 2030 program, which no one even knows about. And I said, I have one criticism for you. You need to implement this program at God's speed. Otherwise, by the time you get it done, like everything else in Tallahassee, it'll be dead on arrival and outdated. And instead of saying, Mr. Imperato, you're right, he walked away, said he had to go to a meeting. The problem we have, and we've had this for 50 years, Tallahassee is disconnected from the state of Florida, antiquated in its entire systems, and they have no interest whatsoever in upgrading and communicating and creating an environment that's friendly to the state. Tallahassee is in a bubble, always has been, but when I become governor, the bubble's going to break because we need integration in this state. We need more communications integration, security integration, AI, IT infrastructure, and we need it desperately. And I'm going to tell you, the next governor of this state must be an expert, as I am. Otherwise, we will be like California. Period. Not maybe. And why? The budget's going to be $3 billion in debt. 2027 is going to be $8 billion in debt. The next governor could be a fall guy to rape the state for billions of dollars for personal gain. In Florida is a target because of the environment. And if you have a governor that's not independent from the minutia, I owe nobody nothing. I have no friends, no relatives, no backsheesh, no bribery. I have no donations, contributions at this particular time, and I don't want them. I prefer to have the small people, I prefer to have their vote, and if they want to support me, well, they can go to www.imperatoforgovernor26.com and do it. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is, the next governor of this state could be the make it or break it of the explosive rise of debt and the inexperience to manage a $100 billion budget. You're talking about candidates that are running that don't know what a $100 billion budget. They've never ran a business. They've never had the opportunity to manage a global team. I ran businesses all over the world. I do every day. So I'm a senior advisor. I help governments and people and countries and companies and in certain areas in security clearances and confidentiality. I am an expert. And I can tell you, if the people of the state of Florida want me to protect them, and God's will is behind that mission, then I will be the next governor. But if not, I only call on all the candidates. Please let me help you because I can. And let me help this state because my legacy at my age, just turned 68. What do I have to do but give back and create a legacy? and my desires and my eyes are on the presidency, but my heart and soul at this particular time is to help my state as best I can, because if you plant good fruit, it'll multiply. So if I can show leadership in the state of Florida and make it an example, you have some candidates out there saying, Florida first. I coined Florida first in the 2010 election for governor. I have the brochures and I can show it to you. Then you have other, people in the state. Florida leads the way. Yeah, they took that from me. God leads the way, not Florida, buddy. So whoever you think that, Florida leads the way, without God, there's no Florida. So at the end of the day, the plagiarization and the motivation to position yourself to hogwash and manipulate, you might do it. But if you want to be straight and you want to be right, I am available to help whoever the next governor is, and I can guarantee you that I pay for myself. No deposit, no return. And I guarantee this state that I will increase, multiply, and expand this state with the greatest success in the history of the state of Florida. In Jesus' mighty name, I'm Daniel Imperato, and I can do the job. In fact, it's already planned. So day one, fast action. Day two, digestion. Day three, profit, income, expansion, regulation, formation, and turning this state into a gigantic expansion program of modernization to compete in the fourth revolution with the giants.
Sounds good. And I had a question. You've already kind of answered my question, but I'm assuming you're for it. Byron Donalds, he's the front runner right now. I pray to God he doesn't win the election. I really do. I don't like Byron Donalds. But one of the things I don't like him on, and this is one of many, is he wants to build AI database centers in the state of Florida. I imagine when you say that, you're actually for building AI database centers in Florida, correct?
First of all, I've met Byron. Second of all, he was nice enough to get finally a little crumb from the president after he helped him get elected. He finally had to give the guy something. I wholeheartedly disagree with the $50 million that was raised. And I am very concerned about the control, as I just stated, in the next governorship pertaining to, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And Byron, he is a, representative of Naples. He worked in Washington. Man, I've been to 150 countries around the world. I've built global businesses. I've met leaders all over this world. What I forgot, he'll never learn. And I got underwear older than him. So he could maybe be a lieutenant for me. But as governor, he doesn't have the experience, and nor do any of the other candidates. But if he becomes governor, I'll be right alongside of him to help him with his challenge, because I'm not about the chair. I really could care less about it. I don't want the headaches. I don't want the stress. I just want to make sure things are done right. So I told Byron when I met him, I said, look, if you win the race, please, I can help you. That's all. It's unlikely, unless God flips a switch, that I will be governor of the state of Florida because of the numbers. But then again, you never know. God's in control. But again, whoever is the governor, and if it's Byron, I will offer him my services, and I will do a great job for the state. And maybe I can cover his back because what I forgot, he'll never learn.
When you say you'll offer your services, I'm curious, and I actually had a question about something of what you said earlier too. Do you mean as in being a lieutenant governor, or are you talking about just working within the administration?
Senior advisor,
Okay, okay. And I know you said earlier that.
diplomatic and global affairs.
Okay. What did you do for Ross Pro? I meant to. I know. Let's way past that. Right. I meant to ask earlier. What did you do? Like, what was your title
I
for?
was young. I didn't do much for him other than support him campaigning. I was young
Okay.
in the day. But what I did do is I hired his whole political team to run my campaign for president in 2007 and 2008. And I haven't talked to his kid yet. I also helped in the EDS and the programs that he created in his company. I think it was EDS or his company created technically. And Ross had a very specific, unique trait that I really appreciated. It was called bullet points on a board. And a lot of what Ross Perot wanted to do in this country is actually proven that he was right. I don't know if you know the history of Ross Perot and why he got out of the race.
I have. I don't know much about it.
Well, Ross Perot, his daughter's wedding came up, and the day before the wedding, some people went to him and basically put the arm on him and told him he better get out of the race. And or they were gonna, it wasn't gonna be a nice day tomorrow. He was forced out, and he entered the race again, but unfortunately, it was too late. And Pat Buchanan, who took over the Reform Party after Ross Perot, which had plenty of money in it, milked it and left no money in it. Ross Perot's intriguing of Ross Perot personally as a stand-up businessman and a methodical man and a common sense man. But more importantly than that, the reason why I entered politics and if I become president of the United States and the Republican Party or the Democratic Party won't like it, I'm fed up with the two-party system. We need a third party in the United States of America, and we need a third party in the state of Florida. But it's impossible because there's no ballot access, there's no political support, and there's no capability for the judiciary system to implement it. The ballot access today costs, hundreds of millions of dollars, and you can't get it done. So I do support the popular vote, and I do support the people of America voting in their leadership. The gerrymandering and the cockamamie stuff that's going on pertaining to the control of a party. My problem is politics when I grew up was how are we going to help, like John Kennedy said, it's not what I can do for me, it's what I can do for you. And politics have changed. Politics has come where, my party's better than your party, and the party wants to control the purse so that they can milk more out of the purse. And just look at it, $40 trillion in debt. I mean, it's insane. And the reason being is the two-party system, the swamp, which I have copyrights to in a written thesis about it in Copyright Office. And the problem that we have now is in the state of Florida and every state in the country and the federal government, we're no longer about the people. It's about government to government. It's about banks, finance, manipulation, and how do I stay afloat? How do I continue to manipulate and budget? And how do I spend more money? Because I haven't seen pennies come back in my pocket for 50 years pertaining to any of the political parties that have brought this country $40 trillion in debt, period. As the Republican Party governor, as an independent Republican, I will be equal to the people, Democrat, Republican, independent, white, black, yellow, brown. We're human beings. But my staunch conservative Secretary Baker, Bush Sr., Reagan, and the biblical foundation of the history of our nation, combining it with my human rights and civil rights activities with Martin Luther King's people and Jesse Epps, and then as a papal knight and historically democratic uh, Cathology, which was the swing vote in this country for many years and still is. And most important today is the independence. So whoever's going to win the governor race, they better have the independent vote because they're not going to win. It's that simple. And it's not going to be won by the traditional Broward County, African American. I don't like the term. You're an American. As I say, I'm colorblind, so I don't see much. Uh, that game is gone. You're not going to play the evangelical game because that's become, in my opinion, a little bit cultic, as well as quite intrusive. And I'm evangelical. Do you even know what it means? So that's out. The situation in Washington, where, I pray for President Trump, I can help him tremendously. I don't know why he hasn't called me. I helped him in his legal cases. I helped him over the years. I've been a competitor to him, and he knows me well, although I never hung out or stayed around that environment. When he was going bankrupt in Atlantic City, I was traveling the world. I was $1.7 billion in those days. But he when he took Mar-a-Lago, he bought it from the RTC, and for $5 million, and I paid for a membership through some third party. I never got the membership, but that's beside the point. One thing Donald Trump did, and I take my hat off to him, is he promised Meriwether Post's estate that he would bring the presidency back to the Meriwether Post estate at Mar-a-Lago, and he did it. The second thing that I take my hat off to him for is when he was coming down the 2016 escalator, he told America, "I'm going to run for president, but I don't know if I'm the right spokesperson." He said it, and he's not, and he never will be. You see, I spent my life traveling the world as a diplomat, training with the cardinals and the bishops and the archbishops in the Vatican, eating rice with my fingers. You talk about Islamabad. I was in Islamabad, partners with Pakistan Telecommunications 30 years ago. I was in Lahore, building the Lahore International Airport with Rafiq Sehgal, the richest man in Pakistan. I was in Karachi, walking in the streets. You talk about Israel. I was in Israel in Dizengoff Square when the bomb blew up. I dealt with Menachem Begin and Itzhak Rabin. I dealt with the Palestinian Liberation Organization. I understand the culture better than any of these people. And I know the Gaza problem. I know the Palestinian problem. I helped recreate the documents for construction in Lebanon of the reconstruction after the bombing. I was friends with Rafiq al-Hariri, the prime minister of Lebanon. I know the streets of the world. When you talk about Crimea and the Crimea situation and how it happened, the Chinese put expats in Crimea, 5 million of them, and trained them, got them all passports to vote for Russia. People don't know this stuff. Putin, President Putin, one thing Donald Trump said is he respects President Putin. Well, in some strange mutual respectful way as a human being and a KGB and a black belt, orange belt in martial arts, which I am a trainer of, as well as a Knight of Malta Coptic order, I have deep ties in that region. And President Putin is a very shrewd man. And unfortunately, it's one thing to say you respect him, but it's another thing to respect how to deal with him. So the problem we have in the Ukraine, in the war, it's sad. It's a joke. What's going on with Iran? When Aga Khan and the Shah came to America, and I was with them in Los Angeles, and I know the region well. Wala habibi kif halak alhamdulillah. Manishma miza mashlamka beseda. That's a Hebrew and that's Arabic. So when the President of the United States sends, now with being uncovered, his son-in-law that got $6 billion from the same people that he's representing for a peace agreement, which is going to come out, and he's Jewish, and then you send Witkoff, which is another Jewish, and I've offered my service, and I told him that he was being bamboozled and hoodwinked, but he didn't listen. I told him that he's sending amateurs, including, in some regards, Secretary of State Rubio. What I forgot, he'll never learn. I grew up in those streets. I know how to deal with those people. I know their culture, their food, their families, their children, how they eat, what they think. I spent 50 years of my life learning the world, because when I nailed at that altar, I asked God to give me an education. And by golly gee, I got an education. And all I want to do is use it. But unfortunately, the political world is not in favor of righteousness, and the political world wants to only deal with the people they can control. So we now have a situation where America has been sucked in, and I told President Trump that, and under the beck and call of Netanyahu and the Prime Minister of Israel. And I was in business in Israel with Bazek. I turned the gold and silver factories into silver, they call it, in Israel. When I was 18 years old, I invested $250,000 in Israel. You want to talk about the border? You want to talk about Gaza? You want to talk about the Yemenites? You want to talk about the Israeli mentality and Mossad and how they operate and what they're doing and how it's being done? I have an education and I love people. So I'm not here to use people. I'm not here to manipulate people. I'm not here to put people around me that are puppets or puppeteers. I'm only interested in what's right. And my father taught me when I was a kid, what's right is might. Because when you leave this earth, believe me, everything that you do is accountable, and you will pay the price on that day. So I leave it to you, which comes to one of the subjects you talk about, abortion and abortion rights, which, if you don't mind, I'll get into the rights of abortion. But when it comes to global politics and reduce it to state politics, as I said earlier, to be a governor, you need to be president. You need to be capable. Because states today are full of interreligious dialogue, and they are full of foreign investment. And you need a person who understands the global landscape in order to protect the state in its local level from the mayor's office to the people's house to your house. And you need to also understand the global application pertaining to strategic capital, as well as the infrastructure. I've been involved in infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure, shopping center development, roadways, satellite communications. I'm an expert. So if I can help my governor, and I did offer Ron DeSantis, and I haven't met Ron. I've met all the other guys, but I haven't met him. I've missed him a few times. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to see him on my next trip to Tallahassee, which is in the coming days. Which leads me to another issue in the state, which is the rules and regulations and legislation pertaining to this new real estate boom, and one of the questions that you asked pertaining to taxes. So let's go. Keep them coming.
Okay. And so are you in favor, and I know that DeSantis wants to completely abolish property tax throughout the entire state of Florida. Are you in favor of doing that?
First of all, I'm not in favor of anything without a plan of action that's going to increase and multiply. It's easy to say no in life. It's easy to spend money. It's easy to take away things. But it's not easy to say yes, and it's not easy unless you're a liar and you just, patsy, and it's not easy to replace without a plan. So, I'd love to see real estate taxes eliminated across the country. But the problem you have doing it is when you replace it, you know what it's going to cost you to park your car downtown? You know what the parking tickets, how much it's going to cost for a parking ticket? Because all that's going to do, it's going to trickle down to the cities and the mayors and the local government, and it's going to skyrocket the cost of living in the cities, as well as the taxes and the increase in local taxes. So you can't just eliminate real estate taxes. But I do believe that citizens of the United States of America, and in our case, the state of Florida, that have owned a home for a specific period of time and a duration, that are reaching the so-called retirement age, they should no longer have to pay taxes, real estate taxes. I do believe that the military and the veterans, which is another subject and another mandate pertaining to military training and military principles being taught in our schools and educating the third part of the trilogy: Bible, Constitution, and military training. Those are the three pillars that found our nation, the three pillars that founded the state of Florida. And without the retirees in our state, I'm worried that our state is no longer going to be a place where retirees can come and enjoy. I also have some replacement plans pertaining to increase of taxes on other issues that won't affect the citizens. I'm in favor of a first-time buyer program pertaining to real estate taxes, but not on second and third homes, not on investment properties, not on fix and flip, and not on short-term ownership or on rental properties. So again, I'm a well-experienced licensed real estate person, commercial land developer, land planner in my own right. So I understand these things better than any candidate in the race. In addition, the worst out of control problem which nobody has addressed, and I'm in a battle in the court right now. The place that I have my primary residence had an assessment of $250,000. It was assessed, in my humble opinion, allegedly fraudulent. Baksheesh was not required. In the SRI reports, because of the building that toppled in Miami, and the construction crews have manipulated the system, and the condo fees and condo regulations must change and be regulated the same as a financial regulatory industry or a Securities Exchange Commission industry, whereby the condominium association board of directors, and Ron did listen to me on some of this because I wrote to him, they must be personally liable when they broke their fiduciary responsibility, as well as their conflict of interest. In my personal case, which is in front of the court, I was denied access to the courts and to the documents of the condo association. It's now 2 years that the state of Florida has been investigating. And I just found out today that the state lawyer, where the investigator found I was right, they opened up an investigation. Took them a year and a half to do the investigation on the condo board. They referred it to general counsel, and it's sitting at general counsel, and no one's even looked at it, while the board of directors and the management increased their salaries without any vote, implemented a $250,000 per unit special assessment on a project that'll take 5 years, which is out of control. It wasn't voted on properly. It wasn't done properly. And when I reported it, nobody listened. And the first thing that I will do on another mandate is an automatic portal pertaining to condominium association abuse, fraud, and misrepresentation in violation of the owner's rights. And the second thing I will do is increase the liability personally and control the board directors, where in my case, there are board directors that have been there for 11 years. They manipulate the system as well as use the buildings that they're in to make money. They, how should I say, increase and modify and upgrade their apartments based upon other people's construction. It's a nightmare. And the abuse in the condominium association, as well as landlord issues pertaining to the rents being absurd. Absurd. You can't live here. I'm not a poor man, but I'm not the multi-billionaire that I used to be, but I'm okay in just not liquid, but I'm still a multi-billionaire. But that's beside the point. The fact of the matter is that the cost of living pertaining to the greed, you see, Florida has a great opportunity for farming. Great opportunity, greenhouse farming. I got a plan. I know how to do it. I can do it tomorrow morning. I don't need to be governor. So Ron DeSantis, call me. Let's go. Let's leave a legacy. I'm getting with Blas on these issues, and the CFO, Blas and the Attorney General. But at the end of the day, I have programs that I've been working on that'll modify this state overnight and correct the abuse that's been going on for the people. There's other things pertaining to product and product liability and quality control and the low crap that's coming into our state being sold to our people, from electronics to clothing, and it falls apart. There's no customer service. There's no axe to grind. Today, it's basically, when I grew up, hey, Mr. Imperato, how are you today? What can I do for you? Then it came, hey, Mr. Imperato, what can we do for each other? Now, today, it's how can I screw you? Because the morals and principles of the state and the leadership of the state have changed. And unfortunately, when Rick Scott became governor and he was head of the Solantric healthcare scandal where $1.5 billion was milked from the federal government, and a lot of people went to jail, and then he became governor. That was the beginning of, well, it's a get out of jail free card. And I don't have anything against Rick Scott. He was a businessman, and he did whatever or however he did, but he got away and he became governor. And since then, the state has changed, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And the other issue is the Republicans can't complain. They've been controlling the state for 30 years. There hasn't been a Democratic governor in 30 years since Lawton Childs, since I knew Lawton Childs. So the potential of the loss of the governor race to David Jolly and the Orlando mayor, I can't remember his name, anyway, is a great possibility. So again, the independent voters in the state of Florida, vote for Imperato. And if you don't vote for me, support me, because we will elect the next governor. And that's why I'm an independent Republican supporting the president and the Republican Party, and doing it in order to take what Ron DeSantis has done and modify it, not tear it all up like they just did with the Obama-Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the nuclear deal should have been modified. Immigration should have been modified. Presidents do things, and the next presidents need to respect them. And instead of tearing down the house and burning the flag and burning the house, they need to modify it. But because they lack the ability, astuteness, and capability, and they're lazy and they don't want to do the work, they want to plagiarize. So what do? Tear the house down and start over again. And that's why our deficit is $40 trillion. And that's why the deficit in the state of Florida will be $9 billion in 27. So I say to whoever the governor is, in Donald's, if he's, debates and wins the primary with David Jolly, you got a hard rope to tow, because without the independents, you're not going to win. And I believe that I have the staunch history back to Ross Perot, and I built the independent movement in this country, and I stand on it. And I believe that the people deserve more choice. But if you represent a party as a Republican under the two-party system, then there are party principles. And sorry to say, in some states, the candidates and the governors are not upholding the principles and foundation of the old guard Republican Party constitutional foundation. And, Project 2025, I was one of the first signers of Project 2025. And basically, it was a general project, and they used it as a political football. But it had great foundation for Democrats or Republicans. The fact of the matter is we need to get back to the basics. We the people, for the people, all the time, every time. And with that, we have to discuss the abortion issue, because this issue is something that touches me personally. Again, being a very young man, I got a phone call. I was in Florida, blizzard of 78. I got a phone call from a girlfriend of mine, and I was doing bad things then, because I was a prayer guy and a Catholic and a altar boy and all that, but I didn't know the Lord. I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. I didn't ask the Lord, what do I do before I do it? Because people think you're nuts when you tell them that. But I also don't hold, the Bible in my hand and claim to be, you know, the greatest biblical prophet or knowledge of the Bible, because I'm a sinner just like everybody else. But I got that phone call, and there was a girl on the phone telling me she was, having my baby, and cried on the phone that her mother would excommunicate her and begged me to send her $300 for something that I do not support. I am staunch against abortion, but there's a reason. I sent the $300 because I felt responsible, and sorry to say, women's rights. Women have rights. Fetuses are alive, and abortion is an abomination, but our Constitution is equal protection under the law and civil rights, parental rights, and personal rights. So, when it comes to abortion, as President of the United States, my mandate and the mandate of the state of Florida as governor, I would mandate that the United States of America and the state of Florida is, how should I say, um, in a way that outlaws abortion as a biblical Judeo Christian constitutional foundation of our nation. And I would separate the foundation of our nation and our state as to the abortion issue, because the state nor the federal government have a right to control the inalienable rights of a person who's going to be judged by God on their closing days. Abortion is murder, period. And murder comes with criminal process, jail time, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the criminals and the killers get away. So while I would outlaw abortion, I would not make it punishable by penalizing a woman's rights to choose, but I would do it in such a strict educational manner, because the problem is, if the women realized that they use the pill for abortion, I mean they use contraceptives, which, set aside killing the child, you're killing yourself. Set aside the fact that you have to go through the psychological trauma of that whole event. Before you do anything in this life in that department of sex out of marriage, which I'm guilty of myself, I really believe we need to educate the public. But I don't believe that the federal government or the state government should penalize brutally individual rights, because the penalty that's going to be awarded to the abortionist will be judged by God. And if you are willing to effectuate a murder because of your personal right, whereby it's unlawful and illegal and it's murder, but based upon the love for people and the love for humanity and the fact that it's the people's vote and what the people want, not what I want. And if the people vote for abortion or not, it's the people's right. But on a national, federal stage and state stage, America is a non-supportive federal and state that outlaws abortion, period. It's illegal, and we don't support it, and we'll never support it. And I will do everything in my power to educate as well as create much shorter terms pertaining to the time frames, much stricter education, as well as the other part of this abortion epidemic is, what about the other side? The child has a right under the Constitution, but so does the other parent. So I would increase the strict educational process as well as the understanding, and I would require the disclosure of the other party, and I would require that the other party be notified. I would be lenient in rape or incest and you know, in some cases impaired situations. But again, it's murder, period. It's unlawful, period. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think that you should crucify and kill a woman because of her choice when people who murder people every day aren't being put behind bars. And we're being murdered every day by chemicals, by sprays on the food, by vitamins that have nothing but carcinogenic agents in it.
Can I add something
So
to this?
we're dying anyway. So I would require a certain process pertaining to the abortion, as well as a certain certified specialist for a special license in the state. I wouldn't allow every doctor, every Tom, Dick, and Harry to do these type of procedures. And there would be a very serious educational review. And I would strongly suggest adoption and saving the child's life, because I could look in front of the face of anyone and tell them that abortion is murder and you're going to pay the price, not by me, not by the state, not by the federal government. When you leave this earth, you're going to face the King of all kings. And if you want to risk that, so be it. I'm not the right one to judge you, but I'm going to warn you. The lake of fire is real. And I believe that we need to equally educate alongside of the other three pillars, the issue of abortion in schools, in you know, proper sexual education classes, not improper. And we need to be understanding that 50% of the United States of America support and 50% don't. And we're not going to kill 50% of the public. And it's unlikely that we're going to get a you know, a national vote, but if it was outlawed and respected by choice, but but defined as punishment of the judgment you're going to face from our constitutional Christian Judeo biblical background of our founding fathers, and you can believe that you may think you're getting away easy, but you're not. And that goes to any other crime or any other abortion, even in situations with, it goes also to, gay rights and same sex marriage and education. Uh, there's no education, there's no proper education. And yeah, it's an abomination in the Bible. Uh, but the people are going to do it. Homosexuality's been going on since Rome, and before that, 6,000 years before. So you're not going to change it. But it's because we didn't educate the biblical foundation of what you said at the beginning: Bibles, school, constitution, military training, principles, morals. We have to get back to the basic fundamental foundation of our nation and our state. And the difference between, in the days I grew up, the way that the leadership was respectful to the people, not to the chair. So again, I staunchly do not support abortion. I would staunchly state that it's unlawful, illegal, immoral, and murder. But I will leave the judgment to the Lord Jesus Christ, because if you want to break that code and you want to bear that pain, you think having the abortion's painful when you realize the psychological trauma you go through. Wait till you get there, because the heaven doors are going to shut, and the lake of fire is pretty hot. So with that, I would be understanding, lenient, but I would state unlawful, illegal, and I would only allow a certain designated doctors that must go through proper education and properly handling a traumatized young lady who just found out that she was pregnant. Because after all, she's a human being, and we all make mistakes.
Can I add a
And
few
believe,
things? Sorry,
hmm?
you can finish up, but I just want to add a few things after you're done with this one.
Good.
So for one, and me and you, we agree on like 90%, and probably a little bit more. There's a few things I don't agree with, and I just want to add my take on it.
And
So me and you both agree that abortion is murder. We common ground right there, both agree. And so I like one of the things I disagree though is, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. From what I understand, you said you wouldn't prosecute the doctors nor the woman who, the doctors who
no, hold
performs.
on. I would say that I said that I would appoint specific licensed doctors with a very stringent program
Okay, and
to
so
make sure that you educate and help the woman any way you can before she does the abomination.
okay, and so what I would add to that, what I would say to that is Jesus says in the book of Matthew that if you so little cause harm to one of my little ones, then my angels in heaven frown upon you, and it is better for you to have a millstone tied around your neck and for you to drown at the bottom of the sea. And
That's what
so
you should educate. That's what you should educate them on,
and
because
but
it's real. But on the other hand, our jails are loaded. 150,000, 200,000 a head. They can't handle the cases in the jails, and they've got to get release the marijuana cases. You can't jail every woman in America that decides to violate her body and the codes of godly principle, because the only one that can make that judgment is God. And yes, you need to tell her what that judgment is and what it means, and educate her. And before, we need to go back to the principles. There were Bibles in all the hotels. There was Bible teaching in the school. There was constitutional teaching. There was military. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We need to go back to those principles, because you're never going to stop the abomination. You can talk till you're blue in the face. You can state that you're going to outlaw it in the state. They're still going to do it. You can put the doctors in jail and penalize them and steal all their money or take it, and not going to stop.
You know what
So
would strongly
the
discourage it is public hangings.
well, the but that's murder too. So you don't deal with evil. Turn the cheek. This is a very sensitive subject, and
Yeah.
you're dealing with a human being emotionally, physically, and a live fetus. And this isn't something that you can put a definitive on, as far as penalties, but you can put a definitive on that the country does not support, will not support, never support, the state doesn't support, it can't support, because the state is obligated under the Constitution of the United States, founded by the biblical principles of our founding fathers and our Judeo Christian and Moses law that's in Congress, that they cannot support abortion, because if they do, then they're going against God, and they're going against their citizens' constitutional responsibility to uphold the godly principles of our nation. So it all goes back to the training since we're in school. I left home when I was young, so 14 years old. I didn't have, the parental training on that, marriage guidance and all that stuff. Every problem we have in this country and every other country has come from the breakdown of education, parental education, and creating sound foundational education. When Jeb Bush was governor, I don't remember the name of it, but he wanted to implement that education program to make sure there was equal education in all the schools, and everybody went against him. But guess what? I would have rather seen an equal education with guidance of biblical foundation, which is what he was doing, and doing it in a way that ruffled the feathers. Oh, you're trying to control the education system. But the fact of the matter is, if we listened to Jeb Bush in those days, our children would have been educated much better about the constitutional foundation and biblical principles of our state, and our responsibility to our Constitution of the United States, and our God who put us here. Because New Israel was created and blessed, and we need to thank God and thank Jesus Christ for giving us the ability to breathe. And there are cases, for instance, you have the pill, right?
Yeah.
I'm staunchly against the pill. I think it's pollution. It destroys your body, destroys your hormones. It's a disaster. You have the morning after pill. I completely against it. Not because of the abortion issue, because of the health issue, the health ramifications. The the long-term pregnancy is a disaster. Those people, they should be hung, because if they want to do something unethical or abortion, abominable, then they should at least have the respect to do it right away. And they don't. And late-term pregnancy, I agree with you. It's it's double murder. But there are cases where children do things. They
Yeah.
smoke marijuana, they drink alcohol, they get drugs, they get pregged up, they get knocked up, and I have to say it's pretty hard to figure out, was it an accident? So number one, who did it? Who's the mutual responsible party? And the man needs to be responsible and identified, and he needs to pay the price. Why should a woman bear all the responsibility of going through the pain and suffering and pay the cost? So, sorry to say, there has to be two to tango. And that would be one of the prescriptions that the doctors that have the licenses would require. And if they didn't do it, yeah, they would be penalized. But young kids who do stupid things, and in some cases, condoms or the pill doesn't work. It's very difficult to decipher the truth about that. But using the pill for abortion, or taking these unnatural med- medicines or medicines to escape pregnancy is a health issue more than the women realize. And it goes back to education. Do you know what you're putting in your body? I mean, you correlate the health issue to farming and food. Since Monsanto has regulated the planting of seeds, we have no nutrients in our food. We're dying. They're killing us. Period. End of story. Nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. No one's done nothing about it. $40 trillion later, we're eating junk. The clothes we put on our body, it's junk. It's junk coming from China and other places, not even made well, not sewn well, falling apart. 90% of the vitamins on the shelf come from foreign places like China. There's nothing in them. It's a fraud. It's a scam. So the same with the pills for the pregnancy and the after night after pill. You're killing yourself. So with that, it's a tough situation. But to answer your question, I am against abortion, and I hope and pray that I have the opportunity to at least be a spokesperson for God and change the minds of as many citizens of the state of Florida and the United States of America and the world, because Judgment Day comes, and believe me, it's as real as your heart beats. So with that, I say, you got to be mindful, and you got to be stern. But our society today is susceptible to so many things because of abuse, and overuse, abuse, nightclubs and drug dealing and laundering and all the money being laundered in the small businesses. It's a nightmare. I mean, we got the Small Business Administration gave out, almost $1 trillion to businesses. They financed and funded criminals. $63 billion of debts not being paid. Up to $580 billion is gone. I mean, this is abuse, and it comes from who? The politicians, I call them politicians, good looks in pocketbooks. So, people of Florida, please, no good looks in pocketbooks, morals, principles, look in the mirror and ask, who would you trust to babysit your children? Because that's what the governor of the state of Florida is. He's the babysitter, keeper, and servant for you, the people, not for himself. So we have some other topics. Let's go.
So I'm gonna just break into one more topic because we're kind of running out of time. We broke over 2 hours, getting at 2 hour, 2.5 hours now. But we're gonna go over one more topic, and that one is going to be, and I was going to get into it earlier, and then we kind of got off topic. It's concerning about the overdevelopment of Florida, and now you kind of spoke about it earlier, but I actually have a question relating to that. Are you familiar with like the Swanee River in North Florida by chance?
Yeah, I know the Swanee.
So Jacksonville right now wants to dump all of their wastewater, quote unquote, recreational water, into the Swanee River, and so is Dade County, and the whole purpose of them wanting to do that is so that way they can create a 30% population increase to allow more people to come into Florida. So their solution for it is rather than incinerating the waste or sending it somewhere else or bottling it up and giving it out to the homeless or people who needs water, because according to them it's safe, it's recreational, it's filtered. They're just going to dump it down the Swanee River. But studies have shown that that water is filled with nitrate and other chemicals that kills off fish population and uh, and uh, uh, dramatically causes a algae problem on the river itself. And so it kills off fish population. It causes an algae problem. It's not good for you. It's not safe for consumption. What can we do about that?
First of all, yes, I would reform the FWC. And second, um, the rules and regulations pertaining to our policy, environmental policy, pollution policy, is as clear as day. And anybody who says they want to put their garbage in our water supply in the Swanee needs to go swim in the tank with the garbage first, and then they can see how they like it. And if they're still not sold on the fact that it's a bad idea and it's illegal because it's polluting our environment and our water, which in some cases seeps into our drinking water, whether you like it or not. But more importantly than that, if they don't, uh, uh, as they said in the old days, scratch and sniff. So get in the tank, go for a swim, tell me if you like it, tell me what your skin looks like when you finish swimming in it, and let me go make you a hamburger out of it, and then you can eat it for dinner. And after you finish vomiting from the toxic waste that you just put in your system and you swam in, then I think you need to go to a psychological doctor and understand that the waste, in some cases, not all, is a huge global problem. The solution is not putting it in the Swanee. The solution is to create green production fusion capabilities to turn the waste into usable material, which is done today in a lot of waste. And we need to change the collection of waste and the allocation and the separation of waste pertaining to the waste management companies and what have you, as to the storage of it and the storage of waste, which I don't even know how we're living today. The bottom of the sea is full of barrels. It's insane. And the only way that we can combat it is to have advanced technology to turn it into viable use of product. And it can be done because a lot of it already has been done. And with AI, I believe that the ability to study the molecular structures and the components of the toxic chemicals and waste will eventually be broken apart, because AI is going to change the world, it already is. And the greedy people that run the big corporations are going to find any way they can to make more money with that waste. So once they figure out that they can turn it into a buck, they're not going to want to put it in the Swanee River. So I suggest that we get a board uh, of advisors pertaining to how we increase the state's green manufacturing and productivity and conversion of waste to use as best we can, and exploit the molecular capabilities of artificial intelligence to enhance our ability to save the environment, because putting it in the Swanee River is not the answer. Was that good enough?
Yes, sir. That was great. And let me tell you, so I'm a real big conservative. Uh, Many people call me far right. I call myself far right in some ways. But although I'm a
What
very
does that mean? What does that
so
mean, far right?
so meaning as in everybody to me has just gone too far left. And but you know what I
But
say though. You know what
what is far left? What is far left?
indulging into socialism and communism whenever we have New York electing a communist mayor.
Well,
And
well, that wait a minute, wait a minute. The far right is, and I'm going to correct you as your scholar. You're not far right, because far right is extremism,
yeah.
and extremism is cults, and that's not you.
That's why I
What
said in
you are,
some ways,
what
not
you are,
completely.
what you are is constitutionally conservative in staunch principle of the founding fathers, biblical Judeo-Christian righteousness of protecting what's right and not what's wrong. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. And when you say or they say you're far right or far left, look, if you look at the Islamic fundamentalists that are in, Iran, right? They're far left, they're far right, they're fundamentalists, they're unlawful. If you look at the jihad, if you look at the Al Qaeda, these people, these people are fundamentally criminals. Period. They're illegal. They're unlawful. They're kamikazes. You know they're a certain breed. So in the problem that I have is quite simple. You see, America's foundation of civil liberties and and civil rights and women's rights and rights to vote, all the rights that we've created over the last 50 years has been diluted, polluted, manipulated, and every inch of a squeeze out of the publicity, marketing, advertising to twist and turn and cultivate adverse, negative confrontation to take those freedoms that our Constitution and our government gave them, and the greed of the country, which sold out our jobs to foreigners when I fought back in 1990 about offshore companies. They wanted me to go, and I said, no, I'm American. And we destroyed this country because of greed and the marketing. I'm not a socialist, uh, but I will say one of the things of socialism that that does intrigue me is the fact that the media has some control pertaining to the minutia and the manipulation and the things that they allow to be said and done on social media and television and programming. I look at the television, I get sick. The programming is disgusting. The commercials are disgusting. The moral principles, and as Joe Biden said, the moral fabric of this country is gone. And although I didn't agree with the sangria that President Trump mentioned about the change of the blood, but it's true. The blood of the American people has been convoluted, converted, manipulated through the mass illegal and legal immigrations, whereby our systems of freedoms have not held to the principles of those freedoms. And they've been given a leeway through the media and through marketing to twist and turn and divide and put men in women and women in men, and create he she's and she he's and every other abomination on the face of the earth. Not that I'm against the people. Look, you have a right to do whatever you want in this life, but the judgment is on you. But at the end of the day, I am against the continued broadcast manipulation, lies, stories. All look, I have my own social media. Before Donald Trump had Truth, I owned my own social media company, and I was one of the first ones. So I, I didn't get into it. There's a reason for that, but we'll talk about that another day. But at the end of the day, you know, when you talk about you know, all of the social media companies, it's very simple. There are systems and technological capabilities, and today bots and artificial intelligence and algorithms and systems that can detect and defer social media users as to the content, the membership, and they don't do it. And they don't do it because they all lie on their social media memberships of how many people they have following. It's all a crock of baloney. And the fact of the matter is, it's become very, very dangerous. When you look at Zuckerberg, you know, how did he get? He took the Winklevoss brothers from Harvard. He used their social media. When you look at Page, Larry Page in Google, and they blocked out all the other companies, and you look at the, you know, Amazon and what's gone on. I mean, it's funny to say, but you know, Southern California, they found warehouses full of COVID-19 and all of the three warehouses. People don't know that. They found three warehouses with every disease tested, owned by Chinese. Isn't it funny that Alibaba of China and Amazon skyrocketed? Isn't it funny that they all bought the products to put in their warehouses and now they're trying to get rid of them to change their business models? Isn't it funny that before COVID, the transportation systems, I mean, one of the things I would do, and I like President Trump on holding China or who's accountable. COVID was not an accident, period, and it should be. They should be held accountable for the slip, and if it was an accident, there's liability insurance. In addition, as a United States citizen, I have one program pertaining to the national citizenry. So when Donald Trump ran for president, and they were going after him, and they were persecuting him, I went on. You can see it on video. I went on the halls of the steps of the Supreme Court, and I called out the Supreme Court before they went on holiday, and I told them, look, if you're going to charge Donald Trump, charge him, but remember, he's got to have a trial by jury. That's the law. So before you can remove him from his constitutional right, you have to have a trial by jury. And then I went over to Jack the Ripper's office, and my was Pam Bondi, who was a longtime friend. But I went to Jack the Ripper in front of the Attorney General office and the Justice Department, and I said, look, it's very simple. You want to stop Donald Trump? File a mandamus in the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and that mandamus must be a injunctive relief mandamus that the citizens of the United States collectively may be harmed detrimentally, and until such time that there's a trial by jury and not a trial by combat, a trial by jury of peers, that the presidential election of any candidate in the race that may in fact throw a wrench or cause the society harmful repercussion and has open investigations and so on and so forth, and grand jury has to have a trial by jury and a determination. And if the Supreme Court upholds the Constitution of the United States on behalf of the citizens of the United States under a mandamus filing of injunctive relief, that they have every right to hold President Trump until he has his inalienable rights, because there could be a just cause as to the harm that could be caused to the citizens of the United States. Jack the Ripper didn't do it. The Supreme Court didn't do it. And then I asked Donald to do himself a big favor and read the Constitution. I sent him the redress of grievance document that was written in the Brown versus Board of Education case that one of my friends who's dead wrote the brief. It's the finest constitutional brief on the face of the earth. And I sent it to my friend, now President Donald Trump. And I said, let them do whatever they want. Use your constitutional rights in the court, and you'll beat them at their own game.
Yes, sir.
And he did. So with that, I support my president. I don't agree with the way he does things in certain ways because of my history and the diplomatic background, but his method of madness may have some end result that nobody knows but him. So under the Constitution of the United States, you have to protect the president and pray for him. We do, as well as Governor Ron DeSantis. But Daniel J. Imperato is his own man. I'm controlled by nobody except God. I'm led by nobody except God. And I have no favors and no friends and no corporations and no one that's going to tell me that I have to do something because they scratch my back. The only one that controls me is stated on my campaign sign. God leads the way, and I will continue to support the biblical principles of our state and Constitution and our country. I will save as many as I can. I will minister to the people from the governor's pulpit. I'll even be knocked out in the Holy Spirit on the ground from Pastor Benny Hinn or one of the other anointed pastors that can lay hands on you. And I'll show this state and this country that God is real and judgment is real. And he is the only one that's going to judge you. But his judgment is a lot more brutal and harsh than the judge in the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm Daniel Imperato, www.imperatoforgovernor26.com. If you want to know about my personal career, www.danieljimperato.com. And if you'd like to contact us at 561-788-0222 is the campaign line. And with that, God bless America. God bless our state. God bless the troops. And I hope and pray no more go. and I hope and pray that my president calls on me, because I can make peace in the Middle East as well as in Russia and Crimea, and I can deal diplomatically to do so. And I hope and pray that the people of the state give me an opportunity to be their governor, or support me in such a way with the greatest independent movement in the state that the next governor of the state is going to have to bring me aboard to advise him on how to manicure, increase, and multiply this state like no state has ever seen, so that the state of Florida can be an example to the United States of America and the world. Thank you very much. I'm Daniel Imperato. God
Yes,
leads the way.
yes, sir. Thank you so much for letting me have you on the show. It was a pleasure having you. I would love to have you on here another time, another day.
Anytime you like. I have some things I'd like to meet you. You're in Lakeland there. I like that little town there.
I'm in
Lakeland.
Lake
It's a
City,
beautiful,
actually. I'm in Lake City.
like, yeah, that Lakeland there, that little town, the little streets there, beautiful little town. I haven't been there in a while, but you know, Publix is.
Hey everybody,
big
if you
corporate
support
there.
the
So
show and you
with that,
support what we do, you can go ahead and subscribe to us on Substack at Florida Frontier Uncensored for $8 a month. Paying $8 a month, you unlock exclusive articles, you get exclusive videos, documentaries, and whatever else is in the making in the future for just $8 a month. That is one Starbucks coffee a month. If you want to take it a step even further, you can become a founding member by paying $100 annually, and you get to come on the show at some point. Go ahead and subscribe to Florida Frontier Uncensored on Substack for just $8 a month.